Hare Krishna, thank you so much for coming to our Sunday Krishna Fest. And it was a wonderful kirtan. We're now going to have our lecture, so if you would like to face the seat on that side, and if you're in the back, please move up a little bit because the room will fill up. Before we get started, I would like to ask everyone to pull out your cell phone and turn it off, please. You won't need it for the next hour, and we really don't want to disturb your neighbors or the speaker. Tonight, I am very, very pleased to be able to introduce my god sister, Her Grace Radha Dasi, who has been part of this temple community for over 30 years. She and her husband, Yudhishthir Prabhu, are responsible for starting the Bhakti Chakra program here in SanDiego, and they have added a lot to this community over those 30 years, and we're very, very lucky to have them. So I will turn it over to her.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivaratari Jaya Gopi Jana Balabha Girivaratari Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Balabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikachara Ashtatara Shata, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki, Jagat Guru Savior of the whole world Srila Prabhupada Ki, Gaur Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So tonight I wanted to read from the Bhagavad Gita. I'm sure everybody knows that tomorrow we're celebrating the appearance day of Lord Krishna. And because Krishna does not come to this world alone, the following day we will celebrate the appearance of his servant Srila Prabhupada. But this verse from the Gita explains why the Lord appears. This is from chapter 4, text 7. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya taratmanam srijamyaham. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. And I'm going to read just some excerpts from the purport because it's a little long. And this is Srila Prabhupada's commentary. The word srijami is significant herein. Srijami cannot be used in the sense of creation, because according to the previous verse, there is no creation of the Lord's form or body, since all of the forms are eternally existent. Therefore, srijami means that the Lord manifests himself as he is. He therefore appears by his own will whenever there is a predominance of irreligiosity and a disappearance of true religion. Principles of religion are laid down in the Vedas, and any discrepancy in the matter of properly executing the rules of the Vedas makes one irreligious. In the Bhagavatam, it is stated that such principles are the laws of the Lord. Only the Lord can manufacture a system of religion. Therefore, each and every avatar or incarnation of the Lord has a particular mission, and they are all described in the revealed scriptures. No one should be accepted as an avatar unless he is referred to by scriptures. It is not a fact that the Lord appears only on Indian soil. He can manifest himself anywhere and everywhere, and whenever he desires to appear. In each and every incarnation, he speaks as much about religion as can be understood by the particular people under their particular circumstances. But the mission is the same: to lead people to God consciousness and obedience to the principles of religion. Sometimes he descends personally, and sometimes he sends his bona fide representative in the form of his son or servant or himself in some disguised form. Dasi Chakshur Unmilitamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vancha Kapatarubhyascha Kripasindubhya Evacha Patitaram Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So is there by any chance anyone here for the first time? Welcome. Welcome. So we're doing our usual Sunday thing, and we're going to talk about the principles of religion tonight. As I was saying, Krishna descends to this world. The Lord has no need to come here. You know, this is not the hot spot in all the worlds that everyone wants to come to, right? You know, it's not the most pleasant place to be all of the time. But Krishna is merciful. We wanted to come here. We wanted to try to enjoy separately from him. And out of his mercy, he gave us the material world in which we can make that attempt to see what it's like to try to enjoy without Krishna. But Krishna is so kind, and he loves us so much that he's not content to just let us stay here. He's always trying to remind us of the principles that we need to come back to him. And one of those principles that I struggle with, and from what I know about other devotees also struggle with, is this principle of humility. So tonight I wanted to talk a little bit about that principle, both in theory and also in practice in our lives. One of the things I was reflecting on this topic is Krishna's coming. He's coming to offer us the Bhagavad Gita, to offer his pastimes, so that we can be reminded of what our real identity is. So Krishna's coming so mercifully, right, to give us this knowledge. Just out of mere gratitude, just out of, common courtesy, we ought to make a little bit of effort to prepare ourselves to receive this knowledge, right? Swami Tirtha, many of you have probably heard him say it, that a mentally healthy person will always be grateful if someone gives them something or does some service for them. It's just a common reaction if you're in a mentally healthy state. So Krishna's coming. He's giving us this gift of his words and his example. So just out of gratitude, we can think about, what does it take to prepare my heart for this gift? And one of the primary spiritual principles is this principle of humility. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who appeared 500 years ago, who was an incarnation of the Lord, said, Trinadapi sunichena taror api abhishnuna amanina madanina kirtaniya sadahari. Thank you. That we must become humbler than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, and not respecting any respect from others. And in this way, we can chant the holy names. He said that humility is the thread on which our chanting of the holy names is strung. So that's a pretty tall order, really. More tolerant than a tree. A tree stands outside, offering shade to whoever comes, fruits, flowers, leaves, whatever you take. You chop it down, it doesn't complain. The straw in the street, the lowest of things. And being willing to offer respect to others and not expecting any for ourselves. For many years, I thought about that as offering respect to others, and then I had this little mental parentheses, who deserve it, right? if they behave respectably, then, I'll respect them, of course. But that's not what it says. It says, we need to be humble and offer respects to others. They don't qualify for the respect. We offer it because it's our duty. So this is a level of humility that we're looking for. And why is this so important? Well, one of the reasons is because it's essential for us to develop spiritual qualities. We can't make advancement without that humility. For many years I was thinking of this in relationship to, I have to offer these people respect, right? Well, I don't have to. I can choose not to. No one's making me. But if I want to make spiritual advancement, then that's what it takes. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave the example that our spiritual advancement, our spiritual life, is like a little seed that the Guru plants in our heart. And that seed grows like a little creeper, and it grows and it grows, and it will eventually grow to the spiritual world if we take care of it and cultivate it. But when we offend others, particularly when we offend others who are striving to serve the Lord, then that's called the mad elephant offense. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said it's equivalent to an elephant who will come into the garden and trample your creeper of love of God, your creeper of devotion, into the ground. So another one of my bright ideas was, well, if I don't associate with anybody, I can't make offenses to anybody, right? Srila Prabhupada said, Rupa Goswami said, you can offer respects to devotees from a distance if you can't get along with them. Unfortunately for me, or maybe fortunately for me, that was not a particularly effective strategy. Because we need community. We need the association of others. We need devotees in order to make advancement. In fact, we can't approach the Lord directly. Krishna says, if you think you are my devotee, you're not my devotee. If you think you are the devotee of my devotee, then you are my devotee. So we have to be able to get along with others. We have to be able to offer respect to others. And so I've struggled in my devotional life with learning how to do this. It's not something that comes naturally, and at least my experience is the rest of the world kind of pushes against that, right? If you look out in the secular world, if somebody wrongs you, there's kind of an expectation that you're going to stand up for yourself, and you push me, I'll push back. You hurt me, and you'll get yours. And if we're materially respectable, civilized people, that may be going through the police or the court, or we don't walk out and blow up somebody's house, but we think, okay, in terms of action and reaction. You've done something, now I need to do something back. So learning to approach these things in a new way required, at least for me, learning to see and understand in a new way. One of the people who comes to my mind when I think about humility is Bhakta Mitchell. And he just left his body a couple of days ago. He just passed from cancer. If you didn't know him, he was, Gunagarai Goswami called him the personification of humility. Okay? He was always cheerful. Even when he was struggling, if he saw a devotee, big smile, right? Sweet words, kind words. He would offer obeisances to everyone, anyone. It didn't matter if you were elevated or not elevated. He saw everyone as his superior. He was always doing service. He would come here, he would sweep, he would wash the pots. You never asked Mitchell, to do something and had him hesitate. He was always ready to do it. And he struggled, like all of us struggle with our material tendencies. And that didn't stop him from appreciating and serving the devotees, because he had that humble attitude, because he didn't feel that he was better than anybody else. So he was always able to take the nectar wherever it was coming from. And even though, his family was taking care of him at the end, he, and his sister, she's a very nice person, but, she's a Christian. She's not a Vaishnava. So he wasn't, the rituals and procedures that we might use when somebody's getting ready to leave weren't happening for him. But some devotees were able to go the night before, like right before he was leaving, and bring some of the things, and especially the audio of Srila Prabhupada chanting Hare Krishna. And as the tape is playing, or the CD is playing, he's saying, Mama, 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 you know, like Rama, Rama, Rama. And the nurse said, oh yeah, he's been saying that for days, you know. So Krishna's there with him, you know, he prepared his heart, and whatever the material circumstances are or were, Krishna was there and he was there with Krishna. So, you know, I just feel grateful to Bhakti Mitchell. Another person that I learned a lot about humility from was Bhakti Tirtha Swami, who was one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, did a lot of preaching in Africa, and was one of the first people I ever heard talking about how to deal with people in community. Sometimes people will ask, how is it that in a spiritual community we can have so much conflict? You know? Well, why is there so much conflict in the world? Because everybody in a spiritual community came from outside, right? None of us manifested, I don't know, maybe some of you. I didn't manifest directly from the spiritual world. I've got all my material conditioning that walked right in the door with me. You've got all yours, you know, and sometimes there's a clash. But what we can learn is how to deal with that in a spiritual way. How does a spiritualist deal with conflict? And one of the things that Bhakti Tirtha Swami said is, we're all a family. You know, every one of us who's here tonight is part of the same family. Whether you are an official member of the Hare Krishna movement or not, you are somebody who is interested in developing your relationship with God. Okay, so all of us who have that desire, we're all connected. You know, in fact, everyone is connected through the Lord because we're all children of the Lord. But those of us who are trying to cultivate that relationship have a special connection because we're all reaching for the same goal. And so Bhakti Tirtha Swami said, remember that these people are your family. You know, just like a family, nobody can hurt you more than your family, right? If you're married, you know nobody can cut you to the heart like your spouse. If you're a parent, you know that no one can break your heart like your kids, right? You know, if the neighbor tells you there's something wrong with you, okay, that bothers you. But if your spouse or your child says it, it has so much more potency because you care about what they think, right? Their opinion matters to you. And so in a spiritual community, we see that sometimes, that our conflicts can be even more intense because we are family, because we do care what the other person thinks. We can't just walk away. Well, you can, but we don't want to just walk away and say, forget it, I'll never go back there. You know, we have to deal with each other. So Bhakti Tirtha Swami said, whenever there's a problem in a relationship, see it as your responsibility. Even if the other person is at fault, you only add to the problem if you blame them. Okay? Yeah, that really struck me, because I was always taught, if you're in the right, you know, you fight for what you believe in, right? Social justice, speak truth to power, right? Don't back down if you know you're right. But in a spiritual relationship, in any human relationship really, but especially in a spiritual community, if there's a problem, looking at who's to blame and acting on our perceptions of who we think is to blame is not going to help us solve the problem. And he also said, treat everyone you come into contact with the same care as the one you love the most. And when I first heard that, I kind of got upset, you know, because that is such a high standard, right? Treat everyone you come into contact with the same care as the person you love the most. Okay? So these are some tools that we can use to look at how we interact with others. And Bhakti Tirtha Swami set a really potent example of this when he had a personal conflict that he had to resolve. As I said, he had been preaching in Africa for many years. And, you know, of course, other people were helping him. He wasn't there alone. He had a team of devotees. And one of the team, this is years later, they're all older, one of the ladies who had been part of his team was really upset with him. She felt like she'd been treated badly. She felt like his behavior hadn't been proper. And she was creating a disturbance, telling anyone and everyone all about it. And this was in the beginning of the days of the internet, so she had access to basically the entire world of devotees. And Maharaj said that he wanted to meet with her and resolve this conflict. So she asked me to be there because I didn't know anything about the situation, and I was kind of sympathetic to her, As they were talking, it became 100% clear that her criticisms were not well-founded, right? That he hadn't done anything wrong. And instead of defending himself, he listened to everything she had to say patiently, calmly, didn't argue with her. And at the end, he said, what is it that I can do to atone, to make up? Even though he hadn't done anything wrong, what is it that I can do to heal this relationship? And they talked some more. And one of her issues was that she had given so much service to our movement. She was an older lady, single, no children, and no one was taking care of her, So Maharaj, in spite of the fact that she had defamed him all over the world, invited her to come and live in one of his communities and instructed his disciples to take care of her like a mother, right? So that, to me, was such a potent example of, it was just radical, like a whole new way to look at conflict. He wasn't thinking about who's to blame, who's right, who's wrong. He was thinking about, what do you need? What can I do to serve you? And that really stayed with me. And it wasn't even that this, melted her heart and she became, so devoted to him. Or nothing like that happened. She was still kind of a difficult person and kind of hard to get along with and complained a lot, But his reaction was based on what he knew was right and showed his level of humility and realization. So that was the beginning of my education on not getting into righteous indignation, okay? Right? Everything that we hear today, in terms of our political system and, all kinds of issues, it boils down to righteous indignation, okay? People are ruining America, right? And it doesn't matter which side you're on, the other side is ruining America, right? So we have to speak out because they're ruining our country. Sometimes as, members of this community of spiritualists, we may think, well, I know that Krishna wants something done a certain way, right? And if you don't do it that way, well, you're ruining Krishna's movement, I can't be silent, right? I have to say something, okay? And in fact, we don't. We don't have to say something. We are not the controllers, we are not the fixers, and Krishna has a plan, okay? A couple of examples from the Bhagavatam that I'd like to talk about in this context. The first is Draupadi, and if you're not familiar with the Mahabharata, it's a history of a fratricidal war between two sides of the same family. One side is serving Krishna and carrying out Krishna's instructions, and the other side is opposed to Krishna's instructions. At the end of the final battle, one of the people on the side that's not following Krishna's instructions kills 5 sons of Draupadi and Arjuna. Arjuna is a servant of Krishna and Draupadi is his wife. So Ashvatam kills these children while they're sleeping, no less. Okay? This is a bad thing. All the way around, this is a bad thing. There is no context in which you can say killing sleeping children was a good thing, right? It's not justifiable. Okay? So Arjuna is tasked with, he captures Ashvatam and now what to do with him, right? This is a relative. This is the son of his fighting guru, the guru who taught him how to fight. And this is a human being, so he feels some compassion. And Krishna specifically tells him, you can't let this person go. You cannot let this go unpunished. Killing a child is, abominable, it can't be excused, and you have to do something about this. Arjuna takes advice from many people, and he asks specifically his wife, what do you want me to do? You know, and it's not that Draupadi was such a spiritualist that her children were killed and she said, oh, well, it was a temporary relationship and they've had so many mothers and I've had so many children in our different lives. Oh, well. No. I mean, she was devastated, as anyone would be, having her children murdered. She was suffering intensely. But she said, don't kill him. She said, his father, you know, who was your guru, has died. And Drona's wife, you know, she still has a son. Her husband is gone, but she still has Ashvatam, this son. And I don't want her to feel the pain that I'm feeling. If you kill him, she will feel this same pain. So please don't kill him. All right? So a couple of things. One is, even when we're right, there are other considerations. Okay? Even though Ashvatam was a murderer, completely, you know, crossed the line and needed to be punished, there were still other things to be considered. So a lot of times when we get, or at least when I get into righteous indignation, I'm seeing things from one point of view, right? I can't take in all the different perspectives. I'm only one person. I only have one perspective. You know, if I'm schizophrenic, maybe I have two or three, but, you know, most of the time I only have one perspective. And there are multiple perspectives. So that's one of the reasons why we need to be cautious when we think we're right. You know, we need to hear from others even when we think we're right. The other thing that we see in Draupadi is she was able to understand that her pain and someone else's pain were of equal value, right? Most of the time when I'm in pain, I'm not thinking, oh, I don't want to inflict this pain on someone else, right? I'm thinking, I want this pain to stop for me, and I don't really care what happens to the rest of y'all. You know, I'm suffering and I want it to end, right? But to be in pain and to be thinking, I don't want someone else to suffer the way I'm suffering, right? So that's where humility comes in, and that's where we then become able to receive the mercy of the Lord, when we're able to step outside ourselves and look and say, it's not all about me, right? There's a connection, you know. Everyone's part of my family, and what hurts you hurts me. Probably the quintessential example of righteous indignation gone awry is the pastime of Ambarish Maharaj and Durvasa Muni. Okay. So Ambarish Maharaj was the king of the world, you know, and he was completely devoted to Krishna. So his time was spent in thinking about the Lord, serving the Lord. Even the duties that he carried out as a king, he did from the perspective of, how can I take care of my citizens so that they can become servants of the Lord? One of the things he did for the prosperity of the kingdom was to practice certain austerities, certain fasts. And he was at the end of a particular fast, a year long of, you know, following particular process, and then the last 3 days, a complete fast. When you do these kinds of practices, there's a particular time for breaking the fast that's auspicious. And if you don't break the fast within that time period, you sometimes lose the benefit of having done this austerity. So he had done this year-long austerity for the kingdom, he and his wives, and it was approaching the time to break the fast when they had a wonderful feast prepared. Durvasa Muni, who was a very, very advanced, very powerful yogi, showed up, as these yogis are wont to show up when they're not expected, with all of his followers. And the etiquette requires that a guest be received and offered hospitality. You know, that's civilization. A guest comes, you don't say, hey, I'm busy, I got to break my fast, close the door. I mean, in the modern age we do, but, you know, that's not the standard, you know. So he's welcomed, he's invited, please come, please join this feast. And he says, I'm very hungry, I'd love to do this, but first I have to go and take my bath. So he and his followers all go down to the river, and they're taking their bath in preparation for this feast. But the king's advisors tell him, okay, you got to break the fast now. There's no more time. We're going to lose all the potency of this austerity. What to do? On the one hand, you have a principle that says don't break the fast. Don't eat before the guests. The other principle is break the fast at the right time. So finally they decide he should take water, because in that way he's breaking the fast on one level, but on another level he's not breaking the fast. So hopefully, we've integrated these two competing principles and everyone will be satisfied, right? So he takes the water. Well, Durvasa Muni comes back and he is furious, all right? You broke this principle of hospitality. You broke your fast before you served your guest, and righteous indignation. Because this was an important, very important principle, particularly when you were dealing with advanced spiritual personalities. So Durvasa Muni becomes so angry that he manifests this fire demon and with instructions to kill Ambarish. Okay? But despite the fact that Ambarish Maharaj had broken the rule, Durvasa Muni was not in the right. Okay? He was overreacting, and he was offending the Lord's devotee. So the Lord immediately reacted. The Sudarshan chakra, Sri Krishna's weapon, came to defeat the fire demon and then, to extinguish Durvasa Muni for this offense of having attacked the devotee of the Lord. So seeing the fire demon destroyed, Durvasa Muni realizes, okay, you know what, I'm in over my head. I made a mistake, and, now the Sudarshan chakra is coming after me. So he's going, it says, throughout the universe. He's fleeing throughout the universe, trying to get away from this, from the reaction of his action. And he goes to Lord Brahma and says, please protect me. And Lord Brahma says, I'm sorry, Lord Vishnu is my superior. I can't do anything for you. And he goes to Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva says the same thing, that, Lord Vishnu's in charge. If his Sudarshan chakra is chasing you, I can't protect you. So Durvasa Muni eventually goes to Lord Vishnu, and he says, please, I'm sorry, protect me from your Sudarshan chakra, don't destroy me. And the Lord says, you must immediately go and apologize. And he explains, one's so-called prowess, when employed against the devotee, certainly harms he who employs it. Okay? So when we throw shade at somebody, we're harming ourselves, right? When Durvasa Muni sought to punish Ambarish Maharaj, he was the one who actually ended up getting that reaction. Okay? So many times we think we're justified in attacking somebody because they've attacked us, or they've done something wrong, or they've hurt other people. That's a big one for me. But there's always the risk, even if what we're seeing is true. There's always other factors to be considered, and there is always the risk that we are going to get the reaction back ourselves. Srila Prabhupada says that service to a devotee of the Lord builds up as an asset. The more service we do, the more that asset builds up. But harmful actions gradually become the ultimate cause of our downfall. So if we're harming devotees, if we're wishing ill on devotees, if we're criticizing devotees, that eventually adds up and causes our downfall. We can't make spiritual advancement unless we learn to forgive. In the Lord's Prayer from the Christian tradition, it says, please forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who have trespassed against us. As a younger person, I thought, that just doesn't seem right. God's supposed to be more merciful than me, right? Why can't he forgive me even if I can't forgive others, right? But I've come to realize God is not saying, look, if you don't forgive them, I won't forgive you. He's saying, You need to forgive others. You know? It's for your benefit. Forgiveness is a gift that we give ourselves. Now, the question can come up, well, you know, what do we do if we see a real injustice? You know, sometimes we have to speak out. Or, you know, what about managers in a spiritual or non-spiritual context for that matter? They're always criticizing, right? I'm doing service and, you know, my supervisor is always telling me what I'm doing wrong and how to do it better. How come they aren't following this principle? Okay? So sometimes it is our duty to criticize. Sometimes it is our duty to challenge something and try to correct it. Okay? How do you know when it's your duty? Okay. That goes back to that idea, you know, that we saw in Draupadi and Arjuna, that you have to consult with others. Okay? I can't depend just on my own mind to tell me what I'm supposed to do and what I'm supposed to not do. Because my mind has been conditioned by my false ego for uncounted lifetimes, and so my mind is not always the most trustworthy advisor. So it helps to be part of a community, and it helps to have people give you feedback and say, yeah, okay, you know, that does seem wrong to me, and, you know, what you're proposing seems reasonable, or not. But the other thing to keep in mind is, even when we do that service of management or, you know, protecting the innocent or whatever, we're always taking a risk. We may get a bad reaction. We may not get it right. You know, our intentions are good, but our false ego, at least mine, is very sneaky, you know, and slides in through the back door when I'm trying to do something nice. So we may get a reaction. And, you know, certainly people who are managing spiritual organizations, they do get reactions. You know, I'm thinking of the Catholic Church, where the Pope and other leaders were monitoring priests who were committing abominable activity, and those, you know, they're accountable for whether they managed well or whether they managed badly, right? I guess what I'm trying to say is everyone's capable of making a mistake, okay? Parshuram was a Shakti-Avesh avatar of the Lord, you know, an empowered personality, empowered by the Lord. And it said that he made an offense, you know. He made a mistake. Dhruva Maharaj was a pure devotee, blessed by Krishna personally. He went after the yakshas and started slaughtering everybody, you know. His brother had to tell him, mellow out, stop, you know, you're going overboard. Yes, there needed to be some punishment, some people did something wrong, but you're slaughtering the entire population. He made a mistake. Anybody can make a mistake. Only Krishna is perfect. Okay? So even advanced spiritual personalities can make a mistake. Right? If we can't tolerate and if we can't forgive, then we're going to be in trouble, because people are going to do things wrong and they are going to offend us. You know, and we can either learn to forgive and, you know, keep our own heart intact, our own heart a suitable place for the Lord, or not. Okay? And I got sidetracked from the point I was trying to make, which is that I am extremely grateful to those who do the service of management in a spiritual organization, because it is very challenging, and they do, you know, as I said, they take the risk that they're going to offend somebody and get a bad reaction. They take that risk because the service of management has to be done, you know. And instead of feeling frustrated that they're not doing it perfectly, we can actually be grateful that they're doing it at all. Because I know I have done some minor, you know, management, and you know, I'm not doing it anymore because it's too hard. You know, yeah, okay. So when we think of, you know, when we see something wrong, someone offends us, we don't know how to react, one of the things that Krishna gives us to hold on to is, what is my duty? Okay? Sometimes I see something going wrong, and I ask myself, is this within my sphere of influence? Am I responsible for this area in any way? Right? If the answer is no, then it's not my job to fix it. Okay? I may go to the person whose job it is and say, I've noticed this. I have a suggestion. Do you want to hear it? Okay? But I don't need to get righteously indignant because it's not my job. Right? It's not my problem. My daughter says, not my circus, not my monkeys. Right? Okay? So knowing what is my duty and what is not my duty is really important. Another thing that we sometimes see is we see the discrepancy, we realize it is within our circle of influence, we make the attempt to correct it, and people resist our attempt, right? Does that ever happen to anybody? Because that happens to me all the time. I know I'm right, I've got the perfect solution, and somehow people just won't do what I want, So I have to understand, even if I'm right, it's time to step back and just let it be. Right? People have the freedom to choose to do things the wrong way. Right? And I had a really hard time with that for up until the last maybe 3 or 4 years. That understanding just because you're right doesn't mean that you should offend people. Right? It doesn't mean that you should attack people and criticize people. Just like Durvasa Muni, he was right. The spiritual principle of hospitality had been broken. He was absolutely right about that. But he was wrong in the way he reacted. And so many times I've been in that situation where I see a problem, I know it's there, it would be, so easy to fix, but, what that goes back to is I'm not Krishna, right? I see the problem. I know how to fix it. I think we should fix it right now, this way, right? I'm not Krishna. Just because I see it, just because I want it done a certain way. Krishna has his own plan. It's not just that I'm not the controller, but there is a controller, right? And it's not me. Krishna is in charge. He has a plan, and things will be rectified in his time. So that, brings up the issue of faith, right? If I have faith, I don't have this need to control. And Srila Prabhupada described faith, I'm going to correct myself. Giri Rajswami said this, and I believe he was quoting Srila Prabhupada, but I'm not sure. That faith means having confidence that by practicing bhakti yoga, everything that we need is going to be taken care of. So in other words, I can see a problem. ISKCON's had problems. My family has problems. So many problems everywhere. They're real, and they're there, okay? But I have faith that if I stick to the process of bhakti yoga, everything that I need to have corrected, everything that this temple needs to have corrected, everything that, the spiritual part of society needs corrected, it's going to get corrected in Krishna's time, right? I don't have to be the fixer. And that's actually kind of a big relief, right? Because when I'm trying to fix everything and it's not going right, no one's listening to me, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, I'm depressed, right? But if I understand, Krishna's got this. I do my duty, the results are up to him, that's very freeing. And I think the last point I want to make is that Krishna gives us this ability, this insight, this intellect, to look at situations, to make assessments, to figure out what's going wrong, figure out what to do about it. That's something Krishna has given us, an ability that Krishna has given us. It's not wrong to use it. Okay? It's not that we should never in our minds want to believe anything is wrong with any part of the temple or any spiritual person we know, or any person we know. That ability to see that, yeah, that's from Krishna. We can use that. But we have to use it in the proper way. The primary purpose of that ability to discriminate is actually for me to look at my own heart and my own actions and figure out what I can fix. Because that's really my primary duty. My primary duty is to heal my own heart. Okay? And then I may have some secondary duties as part of a society to help things run smoothly. I may want to use that, or may have the duty to use that discrimination in that way. But really, Prabhupada said, be 90% strict with yourself and 10% strict with everybody else. Okay. So I kind of wandered. I hope it made sense. But Krishna's coming tomorrow. He makes his descent to save us. Let's be ready. Let's remember to be grateful to him, to be grateful to the devotees, to forgive ourselves, to forgive others. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Dravida Prabhu. Of course not. Oh, Jack. All right. All right. Yeah. I was in New Vrindavan a few weeks ago, and they asked me to give Bhagavatam class, and I realized when I sat down on the Vyasasana, Dravida Prabhu is not here. So if I say something wrong, no one will correct it. And I actually felt like a little anxious, but, yeah, no, but it's nice to get the feedback. Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah. All right, thank you all so much for your attention. Hari Bol.